in the church, and the result of that wisdom was dissension. It became very real among them. It became so apparent. It became so manifest in the church that the result of it was also manifesting. And what was the result of this wisdom that they imbibed? There was division in the church. If you read from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, the first thing Paul addressed after greeting the church in Corinth, grace and peace to you in verse 3, and then in verse 4, I have always thanked God for you because of his grace given you. As soon as he gets done with all of that, in verse 10, he says, I appeal to you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another. So, this wisdom was the reason for division in the church. And their division, centers around the way they measure the various leaders that they had. In verse 11, Paul says, my brothers, some from close household have informed me that there are quarrels among you. What other I follow Apollos, another I follow Cephas, still another I follow Christ. So Paul asks, is Christ divided? So what kind of wisdom is this that you are manifesting that has a negative effect, a negative impact on the church? So from the onset, Paul was out to expose the philosophical wisdom of the Greek in its major areas of weaknesses. There are two flaws associated with this wisdom, the church. And because I think for me, Paul is the best among them. And another person will say, no, Peter is it. Another one will say, it must be Apollos, that eloquent speaker. I prefer him to any other person. And some will say, well, I follow Christ. And Paul says, is Christ divided? Now, if you go to chapter 3, to confirm that James was also handling the same issue, James even helps us very quickly to differentiate between the kind of wisdom that Christians ought to operate in with the one that was manifesting in the church. In James chapter 3, beginning from verse 13, James says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it by his good life. So, James begins here to say that through wisdom consists in good life, good deeds, and in humility. He says, let him show it by his good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy, now that's exactly what was manifesting in the early church. And they thought it was, something appropriate because that was what the wisdom of the philosophers was teaching them. It says, if you harbor bitter envy, loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. Verse 18 says, peacemakers who sow in peace raise a harvest of righteousness. So, like we said earlier, Paul and James were tackling the same issue around the manifestation of the philosophical wisdom of this world. And unfortunately, even today, our claim to be wise is simply a manifestation of the wisdom of the world. Simply a manifestation of the wisdom of this world. Because in our claim to be wise, we have not been able to overcome sentiments. We have not been able to overcome divisions. We have not been able to overcome envy. We have not been able to overcome discord. So if all of these things are manifesting as a show of our wisdom, then something is wrong with the kind of wisdom that we operate. And that's what Paul seeks to address when in verse 6 he says, we do however, speak a message of wisdom among the mature. Now, Paul did not stop by condemning the earthly wisdom. He was not only talking about the rulers of this age coming to nothing,